My name's Ella Halfacree, and I am the Student Recruitment Officer, or I guess the Admissions Manager for the MSc in Finance here at Trinity Business School. Absolutely delighted to be joined by the Programme Director today, Dr. Louise Gorman. Thank you very much for joining me, Louise.
Hello, Ella. Thanks for having me.
And the purpose of this session, I guess, is to just record a bit of information ahead of a live Q&A for you guys that we're having in March, on Tuesday, the 4th of March. We'll share some more information about that close to the time. And what we found was last year, isn't this right, Louise? We dedicated 30 minutes for a Q&A, but we spent sort of the first third of that talking, and it meant that we didn't have quite so much time for the Q&A. So we're just we thought we'd spend a little bit more time sort of sharing some information on the programme side of things. And then in March, we'll have the full 30 minutes for the Q&A. So we do hope you can join us then. So Louise, maybe we can just kick off. I've obviously already introduced myself. I suppose we'll say that applications are open for September 2025 enrolment. I suppose the deadline for applying according to our website is the end of July, although we don't really recommend that you wait. In previous years, the course has filled up before that. So we really do recommend, even if you don't quite have all your ducks in a row in terms of your supporting paperwork, just get that application into us as soon as possible. As the year goes on and more places become full, obviously competition can get extremely fierce. So to avoid disappointment, we really do advise that you get the application in as soon as possible. We're going to have some sessions throughout the year. We're going to have a Q&A similar to the one in March with Louise, with the dedicated careers consultant, Mark Heaney. So he'll be on hand to answer questions that you have about kind of career support, that type of thing. And we've also recorded an alumni panel with some grads. So we'll be sharing these sessions with you throughout the year. So Louise, perhaps you can introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit about your background, about your research interests, and we'll go from there.
Certainly. Thanks, Ella. Well, I'm Louise. I'm the Director of the Masters in Finance in Trinity Business School, where I'm an assistant professor. My own area where I do all of my teaching is financial statement analysis. And I do research in a related area, really, which is now a related area in sustainability reporting. And I also do some research in the area of corporate governance and accountability. I've been in Trinity Business School now for over 2 years, but I've been involved on the programme even longer than that. So I'm fairly familiar. I think any questions you have at this stage, Ella, I should be able to answer them. So really love working on the programme. It's a fantastic programme. Every year we have great students who go on to do great things afterwards. So really looking forward to welcoming a new cohort in September 2025.
Thanks, Louise. Maybe you can, I suppose, kick us off by talking to us a little bit how the programme itself is structured. So it's a 1-year full-time taught masters, and there are 3 terms. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you've got that first term, the Michaelmas term, Hilary term, and the Trinity term to work on dissertations. So perhaps you can talk to us a bit about that in terms of what they'll be studying and how.
Sure. Well, before I say anything, I always caveat, and I think you do the same, Ella, that we are constantly updating the programme because we want it to remain relevant and up to the minute, and that's probably what gives us an edge. So while I give a general gist of how the year works, applicants should bear in mind that because we want to keep everything up to date, it could be the case that there might be slight variations only just to make the programme better. But typically how we work is that the first term, so the Michaelmas term, is core modules. So this year that has been financial statement analysis, corporate finance, investment theory, credit and fixed income instruments, and econometrics. So they've been the core modules this year, and then we move into the Hilary term after Christmas, where you can pick from a wide range of electives, moving from treasury, derivatives, sustainable finance, business ethics. I won't be able to, I know trading psychology is another one. So there's a wide portfolio of electives. And then in the final term, which is the Trinity term, students undertake a dissertation in an area of their choice. So there's exams at the end of the Michaelmas term. In fact, as we're recording, our students are currently sitting an exam. There's also exams at the end of the Hilary term, so they're usually around the end of April or very early May. And then there isn't an exam at the end of the Trinity term because it's just the dissertation. Now, when I say there are exams, not every module has an exam. It will depend on the requirements of the modules. So some modules are better examined, some are just continuous assessment, but it's rare. I think there are no modules on the program that it's 100% exam. So I know my own module, financial statement analysis, is a 70% exam and a 30% project. So typically that would be a breakdown that you'd have part of an exam and part of a project or an assignment to do, a mixture of group work and individual assignments. So that's probably the broad gist of the year.
And in terms of selecting the electives, now that happens during the kind of orientation period, is that right?
Yeah, so it happens quite early, usually in the month of September, that we have the program designed in a way that we would advise you on combinations of modules to choose. We wouldn't say they're streams, that by any means you can pick whatever electives you want, but we do have some supports there that a certain combination of modules might work if you want to go along a certain career path. And we're refining that to help students, because it is quite early to select their electives. But they are available currently. Anyone who even wants to start looking into them now, they are currently available on the website. But I would again advise just to stay tuned to that, because in case there are any amendments to the elective choices for the 25-26 academic year.
Excellent. And in terms of, I suppose, the content, is it mostly theory? Is it mostly practical? Is it kind of a mix of the two?
It's a good mix of both. So our faculty teaching on the program would comprise a balance of academics like myself, and also industry experts who are literally out there every day doing the practical finance stuff that you will be learning about. So it's not to say that the academics don't do practical material, and the practitioners would also cover some theoretical stuff too, but there's a very good balance on the program between the theoretical, which you must know, and then making you work ready. So getting that practical hands-on. We do scenarios, case studies, industry-based problems and so on, so that you get a good mix of the two.
Yeah, I think, like, anecdotally hearing from students, they love to learn at the feet of industry practitioners, as you say, the adjuncts. Even just a simple anecdote can really bridge the gap between the theory that they're learning and how that then can be applied in the real world. And in terms of the technical theory knowledge that they learn, I know that can really stand to them in like an interview type situation, because again, anecdotally, I've heard from graduates that have then gone to interview for roles in the financial industry in Ireland and beyond. They found that they are being asked quite technical questions, or being given case studies and to see how they would react in a certain situation. So, they're finding that the information that they're learning is really helping them, even in that first stage before they go into the job. So that's brilliant. I know also as well, I think it's important to touch on, they do get access to Bloomberg terminals. That's right. There's a trade on campus that I think they can access till quite late. It's about 10 p.m. I think that they can access.
Yeah, no, there's great access to the trading room. So the Bloomberg terminals are really prioritized for our master's students. So there's constant access to Bloomberg terminals alongside our other databases, which you can access on your laptop, such as Standard & Poor's Capital IQ or Refinitiv, which used to be Thomson Reuters Icon. So there's endless access to any data that you need to complete your assignments, to do your dissertation, or even just to play around with what we're doing in class, so that, just like you said, Ella, that you're ready for the real world data that you'll be working with in the workplace.
Yeah, you touched on the trade in psychology and behavioral analysis elective module there, which I know is very, very popular with students that I've spoken to. And I think that's described as almost like a flight simulator for trading roles, isn't it? Where they really get into those Bloomberg terminals, they have an opportunity to kind of wear different hats to see how they would kind of interact with trading software, which it's great to see they get really passionate about it and they're having fun whilst also learning, which is obviously brilliant. And just keeping with the content, I suppose, in terms of anybody that is motivated to maybe go on after they've graduated to undertake CFA examinations. I know that the content of our program is very closely aligned with the curriculum of CFA. Am I right in saying it's around 70% or so of the CFA curriculum, 1, 2, and 3 is covered in the program?
Yeah. So the Masters in Finance is a CFA affiliation program. So we have all of the necessary modules: investment theory, corporate finance, derivatives, econometrics, alternative investments, portfolio management, financial statement analysis, business ethics. So really our students are very well prepared to study for their CFA level 1, level 2. We typically don't encourage that you do the Masters in Finance and study for your CFA exams at the same time, because it's an intense program, and the Masters is an intense program, as is the CFA. So we typically would say that do your Masters. That will have you well prepared for your CFA level 1 and indeed level 2. And we also offer to a number of students scholarships to study or to take the CFA exams at a significant discount, a really big discount. So any student on the program is welcome to apply for that. We normally start that process shortly after Christmas.
Brilliant. And then I suppose moving away from the content slightly and into the profile of students or the cohort. Now it's quite an internationally diverse cohort. I think this year there's something like 31 nationalities on the program. It's 120 people. Actually, I think we went slightly over this year.
134.
So I think it's maybe closer to 130 this year, but typically it would be around 120 because it's such a big. It's actually the biggest program in the Trinity Business School portfolio of taught masters programs, and typically you would split them into 2 groups then of kind of 60 or so for the core modules, and you'd get kind of slightly less. There's a bit more of a widespread then for the elective modules. And also it's a good opportunity for them to mix with students from our financial risk management course, because some of the electives are shared. So again, you're kind of growing your network that way.
And law and finance as well.
Okay, and in terms of, I guess, demographics, it's the program is roughly 60-40 male female, 60-40% male female split. Most of them would be fresh graduates, so quite young, between 23-25 years old, so little to no work experience. Every year invariably we have a handful of slightly older students that maybe would bring a bit of work experience, which I'm sure makes the group discussions, brings a different perspective there. But in terms of, I guess, who the program is actually for, so which kind of students do really well on this program in terms of their kind of academic background, who would you say is kind of programs for?
I'd start by saying we have many students every year who don't have a background in finance or indeed in business. We get fantastic applicants and brilliant students from science, engineering, and even the humanities. So that would be one thing, that don't feel you won't be a fantastic addition to the program just if you don't come from a business or finance background. But typically I would say if you don't come from that background, you would want to have a liking for quantitative methods, maths, numbers. It's not extremely challenging in terms of the numbers, but you certainly would want to be capable of dealing with maths. So typically they would be one characteristic of our good students, would be that they are quantitatively orientated. Another is hard work ethic, because I can't emphasize enough, it's a very intense year, and so that you want to be ready to work hard. I'd also say that you're outgoing, because just like you mentioned, Ella, like it's a very diverse cohort, and we do put quite a bit of emphasis on group work and group discussion. So you know, please don't be shy. We do everything we do to incorporate you into the class, but you do need to be a people person, but you need to be a people person in the financial services sector anyway. So they would be, I suppose, the key characteristics of a good student on the program, and really just to be willing to take on a challenge and grasp it with both hands and do your best. And I think everyone that does their best on the program usually reaps the rewards.
That's brilliant. And I suppose in terms of opportunities post-graduation, so obviously, as I mentioned before, we will be having a session with Mark Heaney, who is the dedicated careers consultant for this program. So he'll be able to talk to applicants in a bit more detail about, you know, where graduates are going. But obviously, the first thing to say is that Ireland has a huge financial sector, actually, in relation to the number of, you know, in relation to the population, it's actually quite a large financial sector. I think there's something like, well, definitely over 400 financial companies exist in Dublin and the rest of Ireland. Obviously, we have the big four accounting firms. And so I guess the vast majority of graduates probably do remain in Ireland. We have we have a lot of international students, and Ireland is a very welcoming place. So, you know, I would be asked in the past, if you're an international student, do you go to the bottom of the pile in terms of getting jobs? Not at all. Obviously, you know, Ireland is, you know, like many places in the world, become a big melting pot. I mean, I'm not from Ireland myself, and I really love living here. So in terms of, I guess, people would ask, you know, about job placement, and we don't do that, but we are very, I can confidently say Trinity Business School is very career orientated. As I say, Mark will go into more detail about the services and support that the career team offer. But I don't know if you want to talk maybe a bit about kind of Dublin itself as a place to work.
Yeah, sure. And everything you said, Ella, there is completely true. And really, our graduates have taken on roles in banking. So in like the internationally known banks like JP Morgan, our own national banks like Bank of Ireland, AIB. They've also typically we have quite a good chunk going into Big Four and the top tier firms like Grant Thornton and so on. A lot, sometimes not a lot, but we do get a good chunk. Sorry, I can't get the right word, but a chunk of students go into the funds industry often. One particular one I should highlight actually is that, and we're running it again this year, is that we worked with the Irish Association of Corporate Treasurers on a specifically designed graduate program for Treasury. So it was really run on a trial basis last year, but we're doing it again this year, where a student on the Treasury module got a really nice graduate program where she's currently rotating in Treasury roles between 3 different companies for 6 months each. And like the experience she's getting in doing that is fantastic. So we selected 12 applicants for that program, and the successful candidate is doing really well. I was talking to her graduation. So endless opportunities really in terms of getting into financial services in Ireland. That really, it is just like you said, Dublin is a great place to be doing a postgrad in this area.
Akancha, who you're talking about, is actually going to be, she's on our alumni panel that we recorded. So I wanted to get her, I wanted to include her because obviously it was such a fantastic opportunity, you know, for what she learned and how she performed in that module directly went into her then getting that graduate role. So it's an absolutely fantastic opportunity. And just to finish, Louise,
sorry, Ella, but
please.
one thing you'd said as well, and I always say it to students, our career service are second to none. And it really, I'd say it would be one of our unique selling points in the business school, that the hands-on tailored career support that you get from the very first day of the program is just brilliant. So Mark and his team are amazing, and I'm sure viewers will gain a lot from that conversation that you're having with Mark as well.
Yeah, I think anecdotally speaking, students that engage with the careers team regularly do tend to kind of be in a position to cultivate more opportunities, post-graduation opportunities. We'll just end on this. So I would often get questions from incoming students or applicants, if you like, that maybe they've undertaken their undergraduate degree or exams, and they have a bit of time before they enroll with us, and they really want to kind of get stuck in even before they start. So if you got, I know that just reminded me of something we didn't touch on: preliminary modules. So preliminary modules during the orientation process.
And we've started running them actually the week before orientation, so that we can give orientation over to more fun stuff. So we this year, and I think it was quite successful, we actually ran our preliminary modules online over Zoom, so that students, if they hadn't traveled to Dublin yet, could undertake them. So last year we ran preliminary modules in accounting, maths, data analytics, and economics. Economics. So they're really useful, and we continuously review our needs for if we might add on an extra module this year if we feel that's necessary. So they're really good, particularly if you haven't studied any of those subjects, or if you just feel you need to refresh or gain some perspective there.
And just going back to what I was saying before, I remember preliminary modules. People often ask sort of what area, if I really wanted to kind of use this time to kind of get myself acquainted with a particular area that they find would be useful, or any resources to engage with. And I just wondered if, I know something like econometrics maybe is something that kind of would be a useful kind of area for them to focus on. Would you say?
Yeah, well, I'd say ultimately it depends on the nature of the student. So as I've said, quantitative skills are really important, and typically that sometimes is where people feel, even though they might be quantitatively orientated, they may feel it's still somewhat of a challenge. And probably econometrics would be our most quantitative, and particularly in the first term, where it's core module, so you must do it. It's probably our most challenging module. So that's certainly one, I would say, that if you haven't studied econometrics before, to maybe do a bit of research online and have a look at what it involves and the key tenets of the subject. But really, to get a broad overview, particularly if you're not coming from a finance background, to understand just what corporate finance is. And really, what I teach, financial statement analysis, does require students to look into companies' accounts and financial statements. So even just to familiarize yourself with the basics of accounting, and just what investments are and so on. So any pre-reading you can do will always stand to you. But I suppose back to what we were saying, econometrics is probably the most challenging module. Another thing I would be saying as well is have a think about that career path and that you might be taking, and maybe be thinking about what electives that you might like to select. So there's one thing possibly I had actually meant to say when we were talking about career opportunities, really where the biggest career opportunities at the moment are, I think in any country, but particularly in Dublin, it's sustainable finance. So that's one thing maybe to start looking into that. I know, speaking to people in industry, they're dying for graduates to come out with their knowledge of sustainable finance. And we do, as part of our business school strategy of transforming business for good, we do incorporate sustainability into a lot of our modules. So that's something as well to consider.
Brilliant. That's a really positive note to end on. Thank you so much, Louise. So as I say, we've recorded this ahead of a live session that we're going to have on Tuesday, the 4th of March. We'll share some more information about that, and invitations and links and things like that. And we look forward to answering some of your questions on that live session. So thanks very much, Louise. And we hope you enjoyed the session today. And again, we look forward to hearing from you in March. Thanks, Louise. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ella. Bye.